I'm so super fascinated with the cybersecurity posture of agents and agentic processes, because a chat window is basically an infinite attack surface. Anyone can put anything in there, and you cannot protect about every eventuality. Literally, just a year ago, I was chatting to someone who works at a large bank, who said, "Oh no, we're not allowed to use any of that. Of course not." And he was like, "So if I want to use ChatGPT or Claude to write a bit of code for me, I do it on my personal laptop and I email it to myself." It was like so silly and inefficient. But that was the reality for the developers at that moment in time in a bank, where the mandate was, no, that's not what we're going to use. It was like, well, figure out a way to do it anyway. And I think that's what's happening today. What Andy's built is he's built like a health agent that speaks to him in his own voice and tells him what he's doing right or wrong about his health, taking all of the data from all the tracking devices and things like that. And I think it's just the fact that it speaks to him in his own voice that really got me.
So, welcome back to Bits and Bolts with Paulina, where we get practical about leadership, technology, AI, and many other things. And today we have Hannah with me. Thanks you so much
Hello.
for joining today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we met in person a few times as well over a few conferences across Europe, so we knew each other also a bit more than only through the screen, as with many people I talk to.
Yes.
But
The DevOps community attracts all the
yeah,
best people.
exactly. I've been following your journey, especially with AI for the rest of us, and I'm really excited to talk more about it and how you build especially inclusive community in tech, what is very often overseen.
Yes, yeah. We've got so much to talk about, especially our overlapping backgrounds in DevOps, transformation, the AI stuff that's going on right now, which is so fast paced and fascinating.
Exactly, I think
Where shall we start?
exactly, stuff are changing faster than we can keep up very often, or I think at least majority of us, because every day new tools, new changes, new stuff. So I think we're all looking for also ways to being able to keep up. But for those who don't know you, what I think it's hard, but probably there is maybe a few people. Perhaps you can say a bit about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So, what I do at the moment is many things, but they're all kind of centered around AI fluency, AI education, and AI transformation. And I ended up doing this completely by accident. So I was taking a career break, and apparently I'm not very good at sitting still and doing nothing, relaxing with my time off. I started teaching myself about AI, and I kept having these little light bulb moments. And I was like, oh, wow, like this technology is incredibly exciting. And so that's how I ended up doing what I do now. But honestly, it is a recent thing. It was probably the past 18 months, 2 years, no, not even 2 years. And before that, I would have described myself very much like yourself as like a DevOps person, a platform engineering person. So I was a product director at Sneak. So I managed the product for container security there. And prior to that, I was director for platform engineering at VMware and at Pivotal before that, before we were acquired by VMware. And so I've always worked in that sort of space between sort of developers and infrastructure, I suppose. And it's like, what do you need to create the best environment for software engineers to deliver their best work, and have the greatest impact on the business at the end of the day. And so that is where I've always sort of positioned myself in my career. And I think actually AI right now, it has a lot of similarities with that. Like, I think the world of software development has completely changed in the last 18 months. And so it was kind of timely that was the moment I got really interested and curious about teaching myself about AI.
I think I agree. It's the same as we seen, 10 years ago with DevOps and with all the movement which Patrick and others started, that it changed completely and was hype. I've seen a lot of similarities, as you mentioned, to what, how is it with AI right now? But also something what you mentioned, it's a human part of development, which I think it's, again, similarly as we have in platform and how do we make developers' life easier, you dive deeply into okay, what is a human part of the AI? What I've seen a lot of people oversee or skip this part.
Well,
What
yes, yeah. And I mean, if we think about what it was like to be a sort of DevOps believer or like leading DevOps communities a decade or more ago, and it was very human, that sort of change and that transformation that we had to go to, because it was about trust. It was like no way, developers will never have access to production. They'll never deploy their own code. They will never care. Like that was the sort of really, really ingrained beliefs that sort of built these walls between dev and ops in the sort of the old world, the old way of doing things. And I think we have another sort of trust issue to overcome, and it is about how much do we trust AI generated code? And what do we need? What do we need to prove to ourselves that we can trust it? What new practices do we need to put in place to know that we can use it safely? How do teams feel now that the work that they do day to day is fundamentally shifting away from like writing the code to really orchestrating agents to do that part of it for you? Like all of the but in the same way that DevOps and cloud required us to reinvent a lot of our best practices, they were only best practices in that world where we had those constraints. We have a new world with new constraints, and we need to reinvent everything all over again, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's why also a lot of people, jump, people who are formerly connected to the DevOps and platform now jump into AI as, early adopters and people who are, on
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
one of the first waves, as we can see.
Oh, I know. Relentlessly curious. It's like, oh, what if? But yeah, it's so true. I think the people who are out there experimenting would always be the people who are out there experimenting, no matter what technology arrives. I think these are the folks who were early adopters of cloud and early advocates for DevOps and continuous delivery and even agile, like the new ways of doing things, the new ways of thinking about the work that we do in software.
Yeah, I think it's the same, type of curiosity which drive this crowd, which is, I think, very important. I think with any new technology, if it was, DevOps and platform, if it's AI now or whatever gonna come next, because I don't think it's the last wave in our lifetime.
Absolutely not. No, just think about what we've seen in our careers. And over how long have I been working? I'm, I don't even want to work that out. It's like, is it like 18 years now? Oh no, that makes me sound old. But yeah, like the amount of change. I started my career on a mainframe team. And that wasn't the hottest technology at that moment in time, but I feel like I've maybe seen an awful lot of change in a very short space of time. And to think that it will slow down or stop, it would be naive, wouldn't it? So I wonder what the next thing is.
I think, there are some jumps. I started in 2018 and I started on the DevOps team. And that was already mysterious for a lot of developers. And
Yeah.
I think it a bit slowed down for some time. And when we have a jump over last 2-3 years because of AI and also how fast the stuff are changing. Also, you work with a lot of different stuff, as you mentioned. And before, was it platform engineering and security? I imagine there were some wild stories. Any standout moment where focusing on the human aspects turned a challenging project around?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there are some things that are always at the heart of the work that we do, and that is whatever technology you're building, whether it's a security solution or whether it's a platform, you have to have user empathy. Like, who are you building this for? Like, so many teams miss that step. It's like, who are you building this for? Like, why are you building it? And I think one of the things that I like really, really opened my mind when I was at Sneak was the empathy for the security team. Because honestly, I think when I was in sort of delivery, like in an e-commerce team, when I was working at Tesco.com, like all of the security and the gatekeeping and the audits and that we had to do around security, they just felt like a nuisance. They felt like they were slowing us down. We've got so much to do. We want to move faster. We don't want to move slower. And then even when I was at Pivotal and VMware, like the security teams will quite often be a source of friction for us. It's like, oh, how are we going to secure these new platforms that you're building? And how do we incorporate security from day one and things like that? And they were often some of our toughest stakeholders. Even those, by default, these were very, very highly secure platforms. The products themselves were built for enterprises and governments and like banks and stuff. So like we were starting from a very high bar and they wanted us to do more. And I think at Sneak, like when I was doing user interviews, these were my users suddenly, these security folks. And I got this new like empathy for the security teams and just the enormous amount of breadth they have to cover in their jobs. If you think about like a normal security team and the ratio you have of developers to security or infrastructure or platform people to security, they are always, always a very scarce resource and they have so much risk to cover. Like this is it. It's like it's all about managing risk because you can never have perfect cybersecurity. It's about which risk matters the most today, and it's also about education. But I was that was one of the things that I really discovered while I was working at Steak. This deep empathy for the security teams who have so much on their plates and are really only trying to help the business, but are often perceived as a barrier and a source of friction and a nuisance. And that's a very, very tough job to do. It's also a tough job because what good looks like is silent. It's like an absence of problems. There's no amazing like graph that goes like up and to the right, like revenue or something like that, or number of users. And it's, if you're doing your job right as a security team, nothing happens. So I
Exactly.
think it's a really, really fascinating and interesting job because like you have to be very intrinsically motivated and you have to negotiate constantly for your viewpoint amongst a lot of people who probably often feel like you're a nuisance or trying to slow them down. And so that's definitely one of the big, big learnings for me.
I think they are a bit similar with it into DevOps team because if, for example, DevOps team is working well, you don't really see the effects of it. Everything
Exactly. Yeah.
runs smoothly. You don't have stuff failing, or you have, it's a smooth process to deliver software compared to the development teams. And I agree, the security team, they have one of the hardest positions and they very often the least appreciated teams because they also find to be the most annoying because they want to close down everything, make everything secure and so on. Especially, by developers who want to have access to everything because that makes their work faster without having certain processes of limitations with access to environments and so on.
Yeah, oh, exactly. And just imagine being sat in that seat today as like the head of security or your CISO or something with AI. And people want to put agents into everything, don't they? And basically, I'm so super fascinated with the cybersecurity like posture of like agents and agentic processes because a chat window is basically an infinite attack surface. Anyone can put anything in there and you cannot protect about every eventuality. And large language models, they're not secure by default. They're quite the opposite. They're wide open. I want to please you, user. How you want some data? You want some data? Here it is. Like, oh, we need some more access to do that. I will accomplish my task efficiently. Let's give you some more access. I think it's a huge, huge risk factor and I think it is one where everyone's trying to catch up. It's like there's huge opportunity for what AI agents can do for us in terms of efficiency, and lightening the load on the people in your team and getting rid of some of that burden. Even in software development, it's a lot of like taking the coding itself, the writing of the code, doing that at speed faster than a human could. But in operations, it's about how the running of your business, like how can agents help us with that? And I do think like the opportunity is so big, but the security risk is lagging behind. Like the conversation about the security risk is lagging behind. And I don't think there's an answer at the moment. And that's not stopping people implementing them, which is also terrifying.
No, and I think, it's a security on the different levels. Because, for example, I recently taught my father, who's in his 50s, how to use AI and how to do it in secure way. And okay, what can you use it for? He's not in the tech industry at all. He's in insurance. So, it's from skill set. And one is for people who are not related to tech and with people who are in tech, because everyone has access to it. And it's a bit, for people who are not in tech, it's a bit like a new Google, just on the steroids.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
course, there's much more to AI, but that's the most broadened tool they have access to right now. And then you have processes, and then you have companies who ban AI completely, but then they be staying behind. So there's a lot of aspects which we can look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when it comes to development tools, what I am finding, so it was literally just a year ago, I was chatting to someone who works at a large bank who said, "Oh no, we're not allowed to use any of that. Of course not." And he was like, "So if I want to use ChatGPT or Claude to write a bit of code for me, I do it on my personal laptop and I email it to myself." It was like so silly and inefficient. But that was the reality for the developers at that moment in time in a bank, where the mandate was, no, that's not what we're going to use. It was like, well, figure out a way to do it anyway. And I think that's what's happening today. I think in organizations where it's like, okay, the procurement team have gone, okay, well, we need an AI coding tool. Thou shalt use this one. Like, we've bought this. But developers have strong preferences about which tools they want to use, and they want to try them all. And I think what we're finding is that you have this approved tool from work, and then you still are using this, or like these, basically every other tool that is available to you on your personal machine, potentially, to get to the best answer most quickly. And increasingly, developers want access to every single tool. It's like one won't do. Like, I want to, like, some models are better than others, and some user experiences are better than others, for different use cases. And it's like, I know. I know the folks at Tessel, who are the sponsor of my meetup at the moment. They give their developers everything. Like, just use what, and if you're going to do a task, why not do it multiple times with multiple models and see what the best outcome is? And I think that's probably one of the patterns that I'm seeing, which is becoming a new normal. The expectation of, like, it's not like one tool or one model to rule them all. It's a selection, and you choose the best one for the job in that moment in time.
Yeah, definitely, I can see this trend as well, but I still see, some organizations which completely ban it. And as you mentioned before, it's also, people gonna find a way to use it even if they are not allowed to use it. Is it
Yeah.
legal or not? They gonna be using it, but not, you cannot control it in the way. So it's better to give them
Yeah.
even one tool than which they can use for anything than none, and completely block
Yes.
it.
So yeah, in the early days of cloud, we use the term shadow IT for anything that's sort of bought into the organization, like sort of by some other route. But shadow IT back in the early days of cloud was rife because business teams were constantly negotiating for time and infrastructure and attention from the small tech department, from the small IT department, and just the idea that they could go and put their credit card into AWS and get a server, and then go to an outsourcer like a digital agency or some some other like outsourcing partner to build them the app that they wanted. And there was no more arduous negotiation. Like, lots and lots of little apps and experiments were built like that in the early days of cloud, where suddenly the business was like, oh, I don't have to ask your permission. Like, of course, that causes a huge problem for security posture, for like understanding your estate, for like efficiency, all the things. But it happens nevertheless, and I think it's the same with AI. You won't stop people. You have to work with them.
Yeah, I think, if people find something beneficial, they're gonna find a way to being able to have it and use it. And I think we talked, over a lot of different problems and use cases. And I think this can refer us to your conference, AI for the rest of us. And I really, I'm really big fan of it and how you a bit different on the whole conference market with inclusivity, taking a lot into consideration, taking into people and community also first approach that it's, everyone is welcome there. But you mentioned that a lot of different stuff, but what actually triggered it what inspired you to create it?
Oh, well, honestly, it was completely selfish. I wanted it for myself. So I'm a tech community person anyway. I value community. I value sharing, especially when we're going through change. So like the DevOps community has been a huge source of support for me over the years, as there are new things and as we figure things out. And when I started to learn about AI, like I said, I was supposed to be taking a career break, and then I didn't really. I was looking for communities around AI, and what I found was, that there were the very deeply technical communities, the people who were actually building like the machine learning and working with neural networks. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not for me. I sit slightly above that. Like, I want to know what these things do. I don't necessarily want to be able to build one myself. And then there was this other like type of community, which was very much in the user space. It was like how to write a good prompt, how to string these two together. And it wasn't, and it was more about sort of individual productivity. This was at the time. And then what we've seen crop up is, the sort of transformation like conferences and the narrative. And again, none of these things really really served my need. And my need was, I really want to be able to have a good conversation about this technology, what it can do, what it can't do, what are the new risks, what does good look like in this new world. And so I was just like, oh, I'll just create it. Why not? Like, I've been running DevOps Days London for many years, so I knew how to put on a conference, and I had time. And so I just thought, oh, you know what? I'll do that. I'll put on an AI conference. For people like me who want someone to explain the technology to them, but don't necessarily need to get into the nuts and bolts of the linear algebra that makes a neural network work. And so it was really that sweet spot in between that I was going for. And and apparently I wasn't the only one. Apparently there's lots of us who don't want it dumbed down to like, oh, it's a magic black box. We want to be able to have a really good, well-informed conversation about AI. We want to be able to work with these tools and deploy them for the right things. But we don't necessarily need that level of detail. So AI for the rest of us has always been about creating that space for really good conversations about AI where everyone is welcome. Like, you don't have to be a machine learning engineer or an AI expert to join us.
Yeah, I think you mentioned very well, space, which is sometimes also overseen in IT, maybe not so much anymore in IT, but I've seen it also that you have very technical communities which are focused on, hey, how do we build, how do we deploy stuff and so on. You have people who don't want to not dive into deep into at all what's behind it. They just, let's take example as my father or someone. It's enough for him to understand how to work with it, but he doesn't need to
how
know,
to use it. Yeah, which is
behind
a
it.
need.
He doesn't care.
Yeah. There's a huge demand for like AI trainers in that user space at the moment. Yeah. How to write a good prompt, what these tools are good for, what they're not good for. There's a huge demand, but that's not the demand that I'm meeting.
Yeah, but you have also everyone in between who
yeah.
wanna know a bit. They wanna know how to work with it. They wanna know how to implement it. What are the processes? What is security, as you mentioned? So there's a lot of stuff which we don't really cover in these two ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the people who come and then keep keep coming back to the community. They are the curious, like we talked about curiosity and how important they're the curious early adopters. They're the folks who are like, right, I don't understand this. I want to understand it better. And what I try to do is curate sort of talks and speakers who are very honest and very grounded in reality. You don't get like a sales pitch of like, oh my gosh, this is the future and we've built it already. It's not like that. It's like, okay, well, like this is what an eval is. Like, this is what we mean when we talk about evals. This is how you work with them. This is why you need them in a non-deterministic system. So, that's the level that we sort of go for, as well as the very honest real world stories of like, okay, we tried to build this thing and these were the hard bits. This is what went wrong along the way.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of, different topics, and it can be, both. It's exciting, but it also can be tricky. How do you make sure that it's inclusive and meets people's needs, and that you choose the right topics for people? Of course, you mentioned your own needs, but is there anything else what you drive with organizing it?
I mean, I think there are loads of topics that are genuinely interesting and that anybody could understand them if someone takes the time to explain them in simple terms and in the right way. And so what I do is I try to set expectations with the speakers about who's in the audience, and it is broad. You have people who have spent their life in software development, and you have people who've never written a line of code. And I'm like, like try not to assume too much knowledge, and explain things in simple terms in a way that someone can take that information away and have a good conversation about it. And that seems to work quite well. Like that seems to work quite well. I've set the expectation now of what you could expect from my events, from the conferences, from the meetup, and things like that. And it seems to work quite well just by really being very direct about the type of talk that is suitable for the meetup, because it's never ever a challenge finding speakers. There's always people who want to talk. But if you're looking for like a real world story that's grounded in reality, and speakers that are genuinely passionate educators, then you have to be a bit fussy.
Yeah. Definitely. From me organizing meetups, I think it's very easy to find people who can talk, but to, find interesting talks and people who can also share their knowledge in the simple way. Because that's, I think, that the most important, to being able to, for everyone to understand it, talking from experience as well.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an expert in the topic to be a good educator. I think sometimes if you're an expert, you suffer from the curse of knowledge. It's like, oh, all the things that I know, oh, you must all know that as well. And sometimes a beginner who's like, okay, well, this is what I've learned in the past 3 months, can be an amazing educator because they still have the empathy for what it's like to be starting out on the topic, or doing that. So I really appreciate people just sharing what they've learned, even if it's at a beginner level, because someone in the room will be at that point and they'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the baseline is a bit different. If someone is, very advanced in the topic, the baseline they took, it's a bit higher up when they think that everyone knows it, than
Yes.
the beginner.
Yes, and what I did at my conference back last October was I actually was very explicit with that we had 2 stages. The first stage was like, okay, the type of content we're going to put on here is for the non-technical person. And the type of content that we put on the second stage is for the person who is somewhat familiar with technology, like understands the vocabulary of software development. For example, neither stage had any expectations about hands-on experience with AI, or any like prior education with AI. But we said, actually, there's like this level, if you've worked in software, there's this level of shared understanding that you have, and you can talk about technology in a different way, using different words, if you assume a level of knowledge about software development. So those were on the second stage, like for the people who work in software but wanted to get that foundation in AI. And then the first stage was the stage that was for literally everyone. You never needed to have written a line of code to get something from that track.
I love it. especially for someone who was, self-learned and get to IT without prior IT education. I
Yeah.
found hard to get into certain spaces at the beginning.
Yes.
One,
Well, like one of the reasons that I was like searching for this community is that I was absolutely bamboozled by all of the content around AI at the time. I went to a conference and I went to a few talks, and I was like, I don't know what any of these words mean, and it was a new language that I just hadn't learned. And that was when I was like, oh, I need something to help me gain this fluency in this new technology that's so important right now. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it, and that's why I decided to help other people and help myself at the same time.
I think that's how we create the best value when we're trying to help ourselves or the people around us, because we understand what is actually the need.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah.
But one topic which we talk a lot about here is inclusivity, and I think we both, as working in the male-dominated industry as a woman, also I think that also comes with understanding inclusivity better and how to create inclusive environment. Do you have any tips, or have you learned anything on your way and journey? How to make something more inclusive, or any examples of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, my education in this topic came very much through the DevOps Days community about how to run a DevOps conference and make it as inclusive as possible. Um, and I think just having that intent at the beginning goes a long way to reassure people that, you are welcome here. Like this is not going to be some like tech bro kind of like vibe. This is a place where everyone can gather and learn together. Like, and it starts with empathy. It starts with empathy. It's like, what might be the things that like put barriers in front of people attending, when it comes to sort of gender diversity of your conference. You can make sure that you have a code of conduct. They talk about a code of conduct, and that you make sure that everyone understands that as an organizer, if something's reported to you, that you'll do something. Because a lot of like conferences and events, they have a code of conduct, but in kind of words only. And many don't even bother to have one, which is really awful. And so I think that gives an extra level of sort of safety and comfort. If you are in the minority that's in that room, that actually, if there is a problem, you know exactly who to go to, and that you can be assured that they will do something. And in DevOps Days, we have had code of conduct incidents, and we have acted swiftly. And so I was very comfortable with that aspect of it. I was like, right, let's make sure that this is not just a safe space in words, but it is an actual safe space where we take action to maintain that safety of everyone. I think in terms of other barriers that are maybe less visible, making sure that you communicate clearly whether there is step-free access to all spaces in your event, making sure you communicate clearly what dietary requirements are being catered for and which ones aren't, because it just allows people to figure out like quite often, like if you're not catered for because of your dietary requirements, just knowing it in advance can be empowering. It's like, oh, okay, I'll bring a packed lunch. Like, it's just about communication and being really upfront. When we run bigger conferences, we do things like captioning, and we pick venues that have a hearing loop for the hearing impaired. At DevOps Days, we also have sign language, if anyone who was deaf or needed sign language, so that there would not be a barrier to them attending and learning from the speakers alongside us. And so doing those things, but also very, very clearly communicating that you're doing those things so that anybody who's a little bit nervous about attending can make an informed decision. And I think, you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. You have to put yourself in other people's shoes to think about, well, it may not impact me, but I can imagine how awkward it is to show up to an event and, find out that there's 3 flights of stairs and you're recovering for an injury, or you're not mobile as everyone else, or you turn up and there's no vegan option and you're like, oh, if I'd known, I could have bought some food. Like, we try to actually cater for everyone. Like, we don't want anyone to have that bad experience of being like, oh, there's nothing for me here. But but yeah, I think it's just all about empathy, and it's about communication. And AI for the rest of us, I always make sure that the first thing people see when they walk in is a great big slide on the wall saying "You are welcome here." Just to really telegraph it, like make sure everyone knows. It's like, you are welcome here. If this is your first time in this community, like, thank you for coming. This is your place. You're welcome here.
Uh, you mentioned a lot of great points. I would add, I think, one point, the cultural aspect. Whenever you organizing, for example, in Denmark, I know everyone gonna come on time. In Poland, they're gonna be slightly
Yes.
late,
Oh
for
my gosh, that's a
example.
huge point. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when AI for the rest of us becomes international, then we'll have to adjust around all of those amazing cultural differences.
I'm sure you already have a pretty international great crowd in your conference in UK as well. As I've
Yeah.
seen people who were attending. Uh, Last question before rapid fire. If any, we talked a lot about communities and conferences and meetups. Also, when we met, if you have one advice for someone who wanna start their own community or conference, what should they know before they dive into it? Or is there one advice you would wish you have before you started any of it?
I mean, I have no regrets. I think being part of a community, and if you feel comfortable stepping into a leadership role in that community, it's an enormous life hack. Um, I think for two reasons. I think one, it is from a career point of view, visibility and network. People know who you are. They've met you like sort of outside of outside of a formal work environment, and so you end up with this incredibly powerful network of people who know you and know that you're good, and that you're not just good at your job, but you're a good human. And they want to work with you. And I think that's been an amazing benefit to me over the years, as I've sort of meandered my way through my career. I think the I think the second thing, which is not to be underestimated, is the people who choose to do community work and to volunteer their time for free to help others are just the nicest people on the planet. Like, they're not selfish people, they're selfless people. They're people who are willing to share and learn. And I think like the friends that you make, just genuine friends for life, is even more powerful than the career benefits that having that network ultimately brings. It's like a superpower. Um, so yeah, I think those two things are the reasons why. The what, like, I will be realistic with you. If you're listening to this and you think you might want to start a community, it's not very glamorous. Like, it's not very, most of it is just like, it's just logistics and organization. It's like, oh, I need to be in this place at this time, this many people. I need to do these three things. And it's all quite menial, trivial work in many ways, of like just orchestrating like events and creating spaces. I think anyone can do it. I would say that. I think to do it well, you have to care about the type of space that you want to create. But if you do create a good space, like I said, the benefits are massive.
I disagree that anyone can do it. I
Yeah, oh,
think
maybe.
you need to be good at it as you are, and you need to also, as you mentioned, care about it to create a great space and a great environment for people to learn.
That's true. That's true. It's not a case of like, if you build it, they will come. You can't create a community from thin air. It's all about people, isn't it? And so it helps if you are a person who cares about other people, and then you have that sort of gravity, that sort of to bring people together and to create something special.
Yeah, definitely. So I have short rapid fire, and then we wrap up. Uh,
Okay.
so if AI suddenly gained perfect human empathy overnight, what's the first thing it would apologize for in the tech world?
Oh, energy consumption.
Definitely.
Absolutely. There's nothing more important. As excited as I am about AI, their energy consumption is the most troubling part of it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not sustainable. So we're not
yeah.
sustainable at it, and not with the boom. Most useful non-tech skill you've brought into building engineering teams.
I think my secret superpower is putting people at ease. I guess I don't take myself very seriously. I've done serious work for serious companies, but I never take myself too seriously. And I think, as well as all of the like empathy that we've already talked about, I think actually part of creating a space, if you're a manager or a leader, is helping people realize they can be themselves at work. They don't have to have that work persona. And so by modeling that myself, I hope people feel at ease when they work with me.
Not even when they work with you. I think when they're around you, you brought such a positive energy into the environment that it's make everyone better around. Teleport one person from any point in your career, past or present, to speak at AI for the rest of us tomorrow. Who would that be?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to go back to my mainframe days, because what we did on the mainframe, this is when I worked for Tesco, is we did store ordering. So we were in the business of forecasting exactly what people all over the country were going to buy so that we could make sure that we were stocked sufficiently. And I think AI must have transformed that. It must have done, since I worked in that team so long ago. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say like, okay, well, how exactly? Because we used to combine weather forecasts. We used to layer on top all of these different dimensions to work out exactly what our prediction was for what people wanted to eat. And I genuinely, I want to know how they're using AI in that space.
Super interesting. Finish this sentence. The world would be a much better place if every developer had easy access to.
Their users. I've been thinking about this, and I think the thing that is the evolution that's happening in software development is not about who can spew out the most code faster, but it's who can solve the right problem for their users. And I think the closer that developers come to product and their users, the better the end result will be for the business. So I'm going to say that.
Business value always.
Developers who also do support, like who work frontline support with users, is going to be a secret superpower.
Most ridiculous/hilarious thing you've seen someone try to do with AI that kind of worked.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you about Andy Martin, who's the CEO at Control Plane. So we were on a panel about AI security together back in November at KubeCon in Atlanta. And we were asked, what's our favorite AI agent? And what Andy's built is he's built like a health agent that speaks to him in his own voice and tells him what he's doing right or wrong about his health, taking all of the data from all the tracking devices and things like that. And I think it's just the fact that it speaks to him in his own voice that really got me. He's got like this little Andy in his ear telling him when he's been good or bad, which I think is brilliant.
Don't eat this sugar.
Exactly. What did you do last night, Andy?
Woof,
I don't think I
woof.
could cope with that.
Pick one buzzword to permanently ban from all tech conferences.
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I think I honestly, I sometimes feel a little bit like we say the word transformation or transform, and it doesn't necessarily communicate the thing that we're talking about. It's like I've used it. I've used it in this conversation. Oh, we must transform everything, and it doesn't communicate sufficiently the challenge, the ambiguity, the journey, the barriers, the challenges, the human factors of it. I think I often sort of said like people get transformation fatigue if you've been through too many of these sort of like in a big organization, these top down transformations. People get a bit fatigued by it. I wish there were better words that we could use to talk about this enormous change that we navigate together.
Yeah, I think we are, in the big organization, there is big transformation every 6 months. So you don't finish one, there's
Oh, and
another one
exactly.
upcoming.
But that's the point. It's never done. It's never
Yeah.
done. Like you don't get to say, oh, pat yourself on the back. Oh, that transformation's done. Like, is your cloud transformation done? Is your agile transformation done? No, we're just all continuously learning, aren't we? And so I think that actually is a nice segue into the event I'm running this week on Thursday, which is all about thriving in an age of continuous transformation. So I've got the authors of the book by that title coming and sharing their experiences with us, because I think actually, the age of continuous transformation has been here for a long time. It's not new. It's not brought here by AI, but organizations are realizing that these transformation programs are never done. And if you treat them like they are a project plan where you can tick off like your milestones, then you're probably not setting yourselves up for success.
Yeah, I think people need to change how do we define it in the organization itself.
Yeah.
And wrapping up, what's next exciting for you, and where people can find you on your conference and join your events? I know that meetups are local, but for conference we offer travels, and people also might want to try apply for speaking as well, sponsoring or for participation. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you where you can find AI for the rest of us on the internet. So mostly use LinkedIn, because X is not a fun platform, and Blue Sky just doesn't seem to have enough density of users yet. So actually we use primarily LinkedIn for social media. We have all of our talks available on YouTube, but the very best way to keep in touch with what we're doing is through the newsletter. So we'll do featured talks, and also just a general narrative about what we're reading, what's changing, and trying to help ourselves keep up, but also in publishing the newsletter, sharing all of that with everyone. If people want to get in touch with me, I am Hannah Foxwell everywhere on the internet. You can easily find me, drop me a connection request. And we can always have a virtual coffee and a chat if you want to work with me.
great. We're gonna add links under the podcast as well. And thanks you for coming and sharing your knowledge and experience, which is very, 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 very wide and very, very exciting.
Thank you for having me, Paulina.
That's it for today's edition of the Bits and Bolts with Paulina. Did you like what you heard? Of course you do. Tell your friends.